3 secrets to success. Be willing to learn new things. Be able to assimilate new information quickly. Be able to get along with and work with other people. The stars don't look bigger, but they do look brighter. Science is fun. Science is curiosity. We all have natural curiosity. Science is a process of investigating. It's posing questions and coming up with a method. It's delving in. I would like to be remembered as someone who was not afraid to do what she wanted to do, and as someone who took risks along the way in order to achieve her goals. The thing I'll remember most about the flight is that it was fun. In fact, I'm sure it was the most fun that I'll ever have in my life. I suggest taking the high road and have a little sense of humor and let things roll off your back. I think that's very important. For whatever reason, I didn't succumb to the stereotype that science wasn't for girls. I got encouragement from my parents. I never ran into a teacher or a counselor who told me that science was for boys. A lot of my friends did. We can see cities during the day and at night, and we can watch rivers dump sediment into the ocean and see hurricanes form. For a long time, society put obstacles in the way of women who wanted to enter the sciences. The view of Earth is absolutely spectacular, and the feeling of looking back and seeing your planet as a planet is just an amazing feeling. It's a totally different perspective, and it makes you appreciate actually how fragile our existence is. I think it's important for little girls growing up and young women to have one in every walk of life. So from that point of view, I'm proud to be a role model. If they asked me if I wanted to go into space tomorrow, I'd do it in a heartbeat. On the other hand, if they asked me if I wanted to go into training for 3 years and then go into space again, I'd probably say no. When you can feel that close to something you're used to seeing from this great distance, well, it changes a person. I was always very interested in science, and I knew that for me, science was a better long-term career than tennis. Weightless is a great equalizer. It's too bad our society isn't further along. I liked math. That was my favorite subject, and I was very interested in astronomy and in physical science. My parents must have done a great job. Anytime I wanted to pursue something that they weren't familiar with, that was not part of their lifestyle, they let me go ahead and do it. Yes, I did feel a special responsibility to be the first American woman in space. It's easy to sleep floating around. It's very comfortable, but you have to be careful that you don't float into somebody or something. The food isn't too bad. It's very different from the food that the astronauts ate in the very early days of the space program. Rocket science is tough, and rockets have a way of failing. So most astronauts getting ready to lift off are excited and very anxious and worried about that explosion, because if something goes wrong in the first seconds of launch, there's not very much you can do. The pressure suit helps. If something goes wrong during launch or re-entry, astronauts have a way to parachute off the shuttle. The suits protect you from loss of pressure in case of emergency. Studying whether there's life on Mars or studying how the universe began, there's something magical about pushing back the frontiers of knowledge. That's something that is almost part of being human, and I'm certain that will continue. I've discovered that half the people would love to go into space and there's no need to explain it to them. The other half can't understand, and I couldn't explain it to them. If someone doesn't know why, I can't explain it. It takes a couple of years just to get the background and knowledge that you need before you can go into detailed training for your mission. I felt very honored, and I knew that people would be watching very closely, and I felt it was very, very important that I do a good job. I find myself looking around for other new, interesting opportunities to dive into. The experience of being in space didn't change my perspective of myself or of the planet or of life. I had no spiritual experience. Once you are assigned to a flight, the whole crew is assigned at the same time, and then that crew trains together for a whole year to prepare for that flight. That's something that is almost part of being human, and I'm certain that will continue. I think eventually private enterprise will be able to send people into orbit, but I suspect initially it's going to have to be with NASA's help. So most astronauts are astronauts for a couple of years before they are assigned to a flight. Well, we spend an awful lot of our time working and doing experiments. It's very busy up on the shuttle. You can picture pretty easily if there were a paying passenger aboard a rocket that failed, like Challenger failed. Certainly it would be a tragedy, and a tragedy for the company. They would have a hard time recovering from it. It's well known that many girls have a tendency to dumb down when they're in middle school. One thing I probably share with everyone else in the astronaut office is composure. The fact that I was going to be the first American woman to go into space carried huge expectations along with it. The best advice I can give anybody is to try to understand who you are and what you want to do, and don't be afraid to go down that road and do whatever it takes and work as hard as you have to work to achieve that. Sally Christen Ride, May 26, 1951, July 23, 2012, in the Encino neighborhood of Los Angeles, California, the elder child of Dale Burdell Ride and Carol Joyce Ride Anderson. She had one sibling, Karen, known as Bear. Both parents were elders in the Presbyterian Church. Her mother, who was of Norwegian descent, had worked as a volunteer counselor at a women's correctional facility. Her father served with the U.S. Army in Europe with the 103rd Infantry Division during World War II. After the war, he went to Haverford College on the G. Bill, earned a master's degree in education at the University of California, Los Angeles, and became a political science professor at Santa Monica College. Ride was an American astronaut and physicist. Born in Los Angeles, she joined NASA in 1978 and in 1983 became the first American woman and the third woman to fly in space after cosmonauts Valentina Tereshkova in 1963 and Svetlana Savitskaya in 1982. She was the youngest American astronaut to have flown in space, having done so at the age of 32. Ride was a graduate of Stanford University, where she earned a Bachelor of Science degree in physics and a Bachelor of Arts degree in English literature in 1973, a Master of Science degree in physics in 1975, and a Doctor of Philosophy in physics in 1978 for research on the interaction of X-rays with the interstellar medium. She was selected as a mission specialist astronaut with NASA Astronaut Group 8, the first class of NASA astronauts to include women. After completing her training in 1979, she served as the ground-based capsule communicator Capcom for the second and third space shuttle flights and helped develop the space shuttle's robotic arm. In June 1983, she flew in space on the Space Shuttle Challenger on the STS-7 mission. The mission deployed 2 communications satellites and the first shuttle pallet, satellite SPOS-1. Ride operated the robotic arm to deploy and retrieve SPOS-1. Her second space flight was the Streets 41G mission in 1984. Also on board Challenger, she spent a total of more than 343 hours in space. She left NASA in 1987. Ride worked for 2 years at Stanford University's Center for International Security and Arms Control, then at the University of California, San Diego, primarily researching nonlinear optics and Thomson scattering. She served on the committees that investigated the loss of Challenger and of Columbia, the only person to participate in both, having been married to astronaut Stephen Hawley during her spaceflight years, and in a private, long-term relationship with former Women's Tennis Association player Tam O'Shaughnessy. She died of pancreatic cancer in 2012.